am Tammy, and I've always been the odd one out, the one who'd rather chase a wild idea than follow the family script. My life's a whirlwind of digital marketing, building campaigns that spark and spread like wildfire. It's my art, my rebellion, my everything. But my family? They don't get it. To them, I'm just the dreamer who never grew up, the one who'd rather tinker with ads than settle into a real job. My sister Darla, though, she's their golden girl, perfect grades, perfect fiancé, and now a wedding so lavish it could fund a small country. When her engraved invitation landed in my mailbox, all gold foil and smug calligraphy, I felt my stomach twist. I never imagined my phone would ring at the perfect moment, pulling me away from that gilded trap. Before I tell you how that call changed everything, let me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe. You'll want to see how this ends. The invitation wasn't just paper, it was a summons to Judgment Day. Darla's wedding was set for a sprawling estate owned by her fiancé Elton and his family, the kind of people who think money buys class. I could already hear the whispers. Tammy, still chasing those internet schemes? My parents, Mavis and Bert, would be there, beaming at Darla, their pride and joy, while I'd be the afterthought, the one they'd rather not explain. Growing up, I was the kid who'd rather code a website than bake cookies for the school fair. I'd spend hours in my room teaching myself how to make brands pop online, while Darla was out winning debate trophies and charming everyone. My parents would nod at my little projects, but their eyes lit up for Darla's report cards. "She's going places," they'd say, as if I was just staying put. But I wasn't. I was building something big, something they couldn't see. My digital marketing side hustle had grown into a full-blown agency, one I ran under a pseudonym to keep it mine. I'd pour my nights into it, crafting campaigns for startups that went viral, turning nobodies into somebodies. It was my secret rebellion against their dismissal, my proof I wasn't invisible. The wedding invite, though, brought it all crashing back. Their voices, their doubts, their insistence I'd never measure up. I stared at that invitation, my fingers tracing the embossed letters, and felt the old wounds reopen. Why go? Why subject myself to their pitying glances and Darla's smug glow? But there was a pull, too. A nagging need to show up, to not let them win by default. I tossed the invite on my desk, next to my laptop, where a notification pinged. An email from a client, one of my biggest yet, hinting at a deal that could skyrocket my agency. It was the kind of opportunity that made my heart race, the kind that could prove I was more than their caricature of. But the wedding loomed, a black hole threatening to swallow my focus. I could skip it, couldn't I? Just ghost the whole thing and let Darla have her day. Yet something in me resisted, a stubborn spark that wanted to face them, to stand in their perfect world and not flinch. I didn't know then that the wedding would unravel everything. Darla's betrayal, her in-laws' manipulations, and the truth I'd been too blind to see. The invitation sat on my desk like a ticking bomb, but my mind was already slipping back to the years that shaped this mess. Growing up, I was never the star in our family's eyes. That was Darla. I'd watch her glide through life, collecting praise like it was her birthright. I remember one summer, I was 16, hunched over my clunky desktop, building a website for a local band. I taught myself HTML, piecing together code until their site looked slick enough to draw a crowd. When the band's gig sold out, I was buzzing, ready to show my parents what I'd done. I dragged them to the computer, heart pounding, and pointed at the screen. "Look, I made this." Bert glanced over, gave a half nod and said, "That's nice, Tammy." Mavis was already turning away, calling out to Darla about her debate team win. That night, they took Darla out for ice cream to celebrate her trophy. I stayed home, staring at my screen, feeling like a ghost. It wasn't just that one time. Darla's victories were always the main event. When she got into a fancy college, Mavis threw a party inviting half the neighborhood to fawn over her acceptance letter. I just landed my first paid marketing gig, a small campaign for a pet store that tripled their foot traffic. I mentioned it at dinner, casual, hoping for a spark of interest. Bert chewed his steak, mumbled, "Good for you," and changed the subject to Darla's campus tour. I learned to stop trying. My wins were invisible, too weird for their world of straight-A report cards and predictable paths. Darla was the daughter they bragged about, I was the one they explained away. There was this one moment, though, that cut deeper than the rest. I was 19, home from community college, where I was studying marketing on my own terms. I'd built a campaign for a startup that got them featured in a national magazine. It was my first taste of real success, the kind that made me feel unstoppable. I printed out the article, highlighted my name in the credits, and left it on the kitchen table for Mavis to see. She skimmed it, smiled thinly, and said, "You're still doing that computer stuff?" Then she handed me Darla's latest grad school application essay to proofread. I sat there, article crumpled in my hand, realizing they'd never see me. Not really. Those moments piled up, each one a brick in the wall between us. I'd lie awake at night, replaying their dismissals, fueling my drive to prove them wrong. My digital marketing wasn't just a job. It was my way of shouting into the void they'd left me in. By the time Darla's wedding invite arrived, I'd built a whole world they didn't know about. A world where I wasn't the runner-up. But the past still clung to me, those old slights whispering as I stared at the gold foil envelope. I could skip the wedding, let them have their perfect day without me. But that would mean letting those memories win, letting Darla's shadow swallow me whole. I wasn't sure I could face their judgment, but I knew I couldn't keep running from it either. That wedding invite was a taunt, but it couldn't touch the fire I'd been stoking in secret. My digital marketing agency, run under the alias SparkVibe, was my middle finger to every eye roll my family ever gave me. It started small, just me in my cramped apartment, pitching ideas to startups nobody else believed in. The aha moment came 3 years ago, late at night, when I stumbled on a failing eco-friendly brand desperate for a comeback. Their product was solid, biodegradable coffee pods, but their online presence was a graveyard. I saw the potential, like a puzzle begging to be solved. I pitched a campaign blending gritty authenticity with viral challenges, something that'd make people feel like heroes for ditching plastic. They took a chance on me, and I dove in, barely sleeping, tweaking ads and spamming influencers until my eyes burned. The struggle was brutal. I'd work my day job, some soul-sucking admin gig, then come home and grind until dawn. There were weeks I lived on instant noodles, my bank account gasping, while I poured every cent into testing ad sets. My family had no clue. To them, I was still Tammy, the one messing around online. But when that campaign hit, it was like lightning. The brand's sales spiked 400% in a month. Their pods were everywhere: Instagram, TikTok, even a shout-out from a B-list actress. That win landed me bigger clients, ones with real budgets. I quit my day job, hired a small team, and kept my identity hidden, letting SparkVibe be the name that shone. I wasn't ready for Mavis or Bert to claim credit, or, worse, dismiss it. The success was massive, but I kept it locked away. By the time Darla's invite arrived, SparkVibe was pulling in 7 figures annually, with clients from Seattle to London. I'd built a network of freelancers, people like me, misfits who didn't fit the corporate mold. We were a machine, turning underdogs into giants. My proudest moment was last year, when a tiny skincare brand we rebranded got acquired for millions. I'd framed their thank you note, hung it in my office, and stared at it whenever doubt crept in. But my family? They still thought I was scraping by, maybe running scams for all they knew. I liked it that way. Their ignorance was my armor. Now with the wedding looming, I was on the cusp of something even bigger. A major tech firm had approached SparkVibe for a global campaign, the kind of deal that could make us a household name. I was days away from signing, my team buzzing with plans, when that gold foil envelope landed. It was like fate was testing me. Face the family who'd never seen me, or stay in my world, where I was unstoppable. I wanted to burn the invite. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the chance to finally stand in their light and not blink. Or maybe I just wanted to see how far their blindness went. Either way, I knew showing up would change everything, even if I couldn't yet see how. The wedding was tomorrow, and I was still staring at that damn invite, its gold foil mocking me from my desk. SparkVibe was on the verge of something massive, a deal with a tech giant called Nexlify that could put us on the global map. I'd been up all night with my team, finalizing our pitch, tweaking visuals, and triple-checking numbers. The contract was sitting in my inbox, unsigned, waiting for a final call tomorrow. If we nailed it, SparkVibe wouldn't just be my secret anymore. It'd be a name nobody could ignore, not even Mavis or Bert. But the wedding was a storm cloud, threatening to pull me under. I hadn't RSVP'd, hadn't even told Darla I'd show up. Part of me wanted to ghost the whole thing, let her have her fairy tale day without my shadow. But another part, the stubborn, pissed-off part, wanted to walk into that estate and make them choke on their smugness. I paced my apartment, coffee gone cold, trying to picture it. The venue was Elton's family estate, a sprawling mansion outside Vancouver, all stone arches and manicured lawns. I'd seen pictures on Darla's Instagram, her gushing about our perfect day with hashtags like blessed and forever vows. Elton's parents, Velma and Norris, were old money, the kind who'd look at my thrift store boots and assume I was the help. I could already hear their voices dripping with fake pity. "Tammy, still doing your little online thing?" Darla would be there, radiant in her designer gown, playing the perfect daughter while Mavis and Bert nodded along, oblivious to the sister they'd sidelined. I wanted to scream just thinking about it. But I couldn't back out, not entirely. Darla had texted me yesterday, all syrupy. "Tammy, you have to come, it's my big day." No mention of the years she'd let me fade into the background. No hint of guilt for how she'd soaked up all the praise while I scraped by. I hadn't replied, but the text gnawed at me. What was I proving by staying away? That I was still the outcast, too weak to face them? I tossed my phone on the couch, grabbed my laptop and checked my inbox again. A new email from Nextlify's CEO, a guy named Floyd, popped up. "Looking forward to tomorrow's call. Big things ahead." My heart did a flip. This was my moment, my real life, not some gilded cage of a wedding. Still, I packed a bag just in case. A simple black dress, nothing flashy, something that'd let me blend in but still say, "I'm not here to play your game." I stared at myself in the mirror, hair a little wild, eyes tired but sharp. I wasn't the kid they'd ignored anymore. I was Tammy, the one who'd built an empire while they weren't looking. If I went, it wouldn't be to fit in, it'd be to stand out, to let them see what they'd missed. The Nextlify call was at noon. The wedding started at 3. I could do both, right? Seal my future, then face my past. I didn't know then that the day would crack open everything. Darla's lies, her in-laws' schemes, and the truth I'd been running from. I pulled up to the estate, my beat-up hatchback looking like a stray dog among the sleek SUVs and limos. The place was a fortress of wealth. Stone pillars, rose gardens, a fountain that probably cost more than my rent. I smoothed my black dress, took a breath, and stepped into the wedding circus. The air was thick with perfume and fake laughter, guests milling around with champagne flutes, their voices buzzing with gossip. I spotted Velma and Norris, Elton's parents, holding court near a gazebo, their smiles as polished as their cufflinks. Velma's eyes flicked over me, her lips curling into a smirk that said, "Who let you in?" I forced a nod and kept moving, scanning for Darla or my parents, my stomach nodding with every step. Mavis was by the dessert table, fussing over a tower of macarons, her face lit up like this was her day too. Bert stood beside her, sipping a drink, looking bored but proud. I approached, and Mavis spotted me, her smile faltering. "Tammy, you made it," she said, her tone more surprise than warmth. "Didn't think you'd show." Bert gave a grunt, his version of a greeting. Before I could respond, a cousin, Wanda, swooped in, all fake hugs and loud compliments about Darla's gown. "Isn't she just perfect?" Wanda gushed, not even glancing at me. I mumbled something and slipped away, feeling like I'd walked into a play where I had no lines. Then came the gauntlet. Norris cornered me near a floral arch, his voice dripping with condescension. "Tammy, still dabbling in that internet nonsense?" he asked, loud enough for a nearby cluster of guests to turn. I clenched my jaw, said, "It's a business, actually," but he was already chuckling, waving me off like a child. Velma joined in, her eyes glinting. "You must come to our gala next month. See how real success looks." The words stung, but I kept my face neutral, nodding like I cared. A family friend, Percy, chimed in, asking if I was still single and freelancing, his pity barely masked. Each jab was a reminder. To them, I was the screw-up, the one who'd never matched Darla's shine. Darla finally appeared, gliding through the crowd in her ivory gown, Elton on her arm. She spotted me and flashed a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Tammy, you're here," she said, like it was a miracle. "Don't you love the venue?" I nodded, but her attention was already elsewhere, pulled to a gaggle of bridesmaids cooing over her ring. I stood there, invisible again, the weight of their judgment pressing harder. I wanted to bolt, to get back to my world where I wasn't a punchline. but something kept me rooted. A need to see this through, to face the facade and not flinch. I didn't know then that the worst was coming, that Darla's perfect day was about to unravel in ways I couldn't imagine. The wedding ceremony was starting, and I found a seat in the back, half hidden by a pillar, trying to blend into the velvet chairs and over-the-top floral arrangements. The string quartet played something soft and snooty, while guests whispered about Darla's dress and Elton's charm. I kept my eyes on my phone, refreshing my inbox, thinking about the Nexlify deal I'd sealed just hours ago on a rushed call from my car. That win felt like a lifeline, a reminder I didn't belong in this gilded cage. But as Darla walked down the aisle, all radiant smiles and practiced grace, I felt the old ache, her spotlight, my shadow. The vows were saccharine, Elton promising forever, Darla tearing up on cue. I clapped when everyone else did, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying Norris's smirk, Velma's jab, Mavis's half-hearted greeting. Then came the reception, a glittering affair in a ballroom that screamed excess, crystal chandeliers, gold-rimmed plates, waiters circling with caviar. I grabbed a glass of wine and steeled myself for more small talk. But the mood shifted when Darla pulled me aside, her face a mix of pity and something sharper. "Tammy, we need to talk," she said, guiding me to a quiet corner, Elton trailing behind like a guard dog. Her voice dropped and the mask fell. "You've always been different," she started, like it was a diagnosis. "Elton's family, they value stability, tradition. They've offered to set me up, really set me up, but only if we distance ourselves from anything that doesn't fit." I blinked, not sure I was hearing right. "What are you saying?" I asked, my voice low. She glanced at Elton, who nodded, and then she hit me with it. "We're cutting you out, Tammy. No more family stuff. You're too unpredictable." It was like a slap, but worse, because it wasn't just her. Mavis and Bert were in on it, she said, agreeing I was a liability to their new polished image with Elton's clan. I stood there, wine glass trembling in my hand, as the betrayal sank in. Darla, my sister, the one I'd proofread essays for, the one I'd cheered for despite everything, was throwing me away for her shiny new life. Elton chimed in, his tone all business. "It's nothing personal, Tammy, it's about protecting our future." Velma and Norris had orchestrated it, Darla admitted, their wealth dangling like a carrot to pull her in. I was the price. My chest tightened, the room spinning with laughter and clinking glasses, while I was being erased. I wanted to scream, to upend their perfect table, but I just stared at Darla, seeing her for the first time, not my sister, but a stranger who'd chosen their game over me. I stood in that corner, Darla's words slicing through me, her betrayal a blade I hadn't seen coming. The ballroom's glitter felt like a mockery, chandeliers sparkling, guests laughing, oblivious to the bomb she'd just dropped. I was a liability, she'd said, disposable for the sake of her shiny new life with Elton and his vulture parents. My hands shook, the wine glass nearly slipping, as I fought the urge to hurl it at her perfectly made-up face. But before I could find words, my phone buzzed in my pocket, sharp and insistent. I ignored it at first, too raw, too trapped in the moment. It buzzed again, then again, until I pulled it out, more to steady myself than anything else. The screen lit up with Floyd's name, Nexlify's CEO. My heart lurched. I stepped away from Darla, who barely noticed, already turning back to Elton with a practiced smile. I swiped to answer, my voice low. "Tammy, you there?" Floyd's voice was electric, cutting through the fog. "We just got the green light from the board. Your campaign's a go. Global rollout, 8 figures, starting next month. You're about to be a goddamn legend." I froze, the words sinking in. Spark Vibe, my secret empire, wasn't just a success anymore, it was a juggernaut. The deal I'd sealed in my car that morning had exploded into something bigger than I'd dreamed, and here was Floyd, practically shouting it through the phone. I mumbled a stunned thank you, my mind racing, as he promised to send details and hung up. I looked up, the ballroom coming back into focus. Darla was across the room, laughing with Velma, her betrayal still burning in my chest. But now, I had something they couldn't touch. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, my pulse steadying, and made my way to the center of the room, where a mic sat unused on a small stage. I didn't plan it, but my feet moved anyway. I grabbed the mic, tapped it, and the chatter died down. Eyes turning to me, Velma's smirk, Norris's raised brow, Mavis and Bert's confusion, Darla's sudden panic. Hi everyone, I said, my voice clear, stronger than I felt. I'm Tammy, Darla's sister. Just got a call you might find interesting. I laid it out, casual but sharp. Spark Vibe, my little internet thing, had just landed a global deal worth millions. I didn't name Nexlify, didn't need to. The numbers spoke. Gasps rippled through the crowd, murmurs rising. Velma's face tightened, Norris's drink paused mid-sip. Darla's eyes widened, her perfect mask cracking. Mavis and Bert looked like they'd been slapped, their unpredictable daughter suddenly rewriting the script. I didn't gloat, didn't need to. The truth was enough. I set the mic down, the room buzzing, and felt the weight of their judgment lift. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. They saw me, and it was on my terms. The mic hit the stand with a soft thud, and the ballroom erupted into whispers, a hive of shocked glances and half-covered mouths. I stepped off the stage, my heart still hammering, but my steps were steady. Darla's face was a mask of panic, her eyes darting to Elton, who looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Velma and Norris stood frozen, their smugness replaced by something like fear. Fear of being outplayed in their own game. Mavis and Bert were whispering furiously, their confusion almost comical. I didn't care. The truth was out, my success a spotlight they couldn't dim. I'd spent years shrinking under their dismissal, but that call from Floyd had flipped the script, and I wasn't done yet. I made my way toward Darla, the crowd parting like I was carrying a live wire. She tried to smile, but it wobbled, her hands fidgeting with her gown. "Tammy, can we talk?" she stammered, but I held up a hand, stopping her cold. "You had your say," I said, loud enough for the nearby guests to hear. "Now it's my turn." I didn't yell, didn't need to. My voice carried the weight of every slight, every moment they'd made me feel less. "You called me a liability, Darla, said I didn't fit your shiny new world. But let's be real, you and your in-laws built this whole day on lies." Her eyes widened and Elton stepped forward, murmuring, "Now, Tammy, let's not make a scene." I ignored him. I turned to Velma and Norris, who were clutching their drinks like lifelines. "You thought you could buy my sister, didn't you?" I said, my gaze locked on them. "Dangle your money, your estate, and she'd cut me out to keep it. But here's the thing, your world's a facade. You're not powerful, you're desperate." Velma's face flushed and Norris sputtered, but I kept going. "And you, Darla? You betrayed me for this? For people who'd sell their own kid out if the price was right?" The room was dead silent now, every eye on us. Darla's lip trembled, but she didn't speak. She couldn't. I looked at Mavis and Bert, their faces pale. "You let this happen," I said. "You chose her perfection over me, every time. But I built something real, something you'll never understand." I took a breath, feeling the weight of years fall away. "I'm done with your hypocrisy, enjoy your wedding." I turned and walked out, the click of my boots echoing on the polished floor. Nobody followed. Outside, the night air hit me like a cleanse, the estate's lights fading behind me. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove, the Nexlify deal pulsing in my mind like a promise. I wasn't just leaving the wedding. I was leaving their world, and I'd never felt so free. I drove away from the estate, the weight of Darla's betrayal and the wedding's gilded chaos fading with every mile. My phone stayed silent, no texts from Mavis, no apologies from Darla. Good. I didn't want their noise. I headed to a small diner in the city, a hole in the wall called Rusty's, where my real family was waiting. The people who'd seen me when my blood relatives hadn't. My team, my allies, the ones who'd helped build Spark Vibe, from late-night brainstorms to an empire. They were already there, crammed into a corner booth, laughing over greasy fries and milkshakes. The contrast to the wedding's cold perfection hit me like a warm wave. Gwen, my lead designer, spotted me first, her wild curls bouncing as she waved me over. "Tammy, you survived the lion's den," she teased, scooting to make room. Next to her was Lyle, our data guy, who gave me a fist bump, his glasses fogged from the diner's steam. Across the table, Fern, my social media wizard, was mid-story, her hands flying as she described a client's latest meltdown. These were my people. Misfits like me, who'd bet on my vision when it was just a flicker. No gold foil, no fake smiles, just real, messy loyalty. I slid into the booth, the vinyl squeaking, and felt my shoulders loosen for the first time all day. I told them about the wedding, sparing no detail. Darla's betrayal, Velma and Norris's scheming, the mic drop with the Nexlify news. Gwen's jaw dropped, Lyle let out a low whistle, and Fern clapped like I'd won a boxing match. "You roasted them?" Fern said, grinning. Wish I'd seen their faces. I laughed, the sound surprising me. Hours ago, I'd been gutted, but here, surrounded by people who got it, the pain felt smaller, less like a wound and more like a scar. We ordered another round of shakes, and Lyle pulled out his laptop, showing me early mocks for the Nexlify campaign. The work grounded me, a reminder of what I'd built outside their shadows. As the night stretched on, Gwen leaned in, her voice soft. "You okay, Tammy? That was heavy." I nodded, stirring my shake. "I'm better here," I said, meaning it. The diner's hum, the clink of dishes, my team's banter. It was home in a way the wedding never could be. Darla's world was built on appearances. This one was built on truth. I didn't need her approval, or Mavis's, or anyone's. I had this. People who saw me, who'd fight for me. The wedding had shown me what I wasn't. This booth showed me what I was. The diner's glow lingered in my mind as I drove home, but the wedding's fallout wasn't done with me yet. By morning, my phone was a minefield. Missed calls from Mavis, a rambling voicemail from Bert, and a text from Darla that just said we need to talk. I deleted it. Their voices, their excuses were static I didn't need. I'd laid bare their hypocrisy at the wedding, walked out on my terms, and now I had to protect that freedom. SparkVibe was my world. The Nexlify deal was my future, and I wasn't letting their drama drag me back. I needed boundaries, not just words, but walls, to keep their toxicity out. I started with the practical. I blocked Darla's number, then Mavis and Bert's, my thumb hesitating only for a second. It wasn't spite, it was survival. I'd spent years chasing their approval, shrinking to fit their mold, and it had only left me hollow. No more. I called Gwen and asked her to screen any emails that might come from family or Elton's clan. "If they try to weasel in, shut it down," I told her. She didn't ask questions, just said, "Got your back, boss." Lyle and Fern got the same memo. No leaks, no access, no exceptions. My team was my shield, and I trusted them to hold the line. Then came the harder part, facing the emotional wreckage. I sat in my apartment, the quiet pressing in, and let myself feel the grief. Darla's betrayal wasn't just a moment, it was the end of a story I'd clung to. The one where we'd someday be real sisters again. I mourned that kid who'd proofread her essays, who'd hoped for a bond that never came. But I also saw the truth. I'd been enough all along. I didn't need her, or Mavis's pride, or Bert's gruff nods. I had SparkVibe, my team, my wins. That was my legacy, not their last name. I set new rules for myself, writing them down like a contract. No family events, no guilt trips, no letting their voices back in. I'd focus on Nexlify, on scaling SparkVibe, on building a life that felt like mine. If they reached out, I'd stay civil but distant. Short replies, no doors opened. I wasn't running anymore, but I wasn't fighting their battles either. My energy was for me now, for the campaigns, the clients, the team that had my back. I looked at the framed thank you note from that skincare brand still on my wall and felt a calm settle in. The wedding had broken something, but it had also set me free. With the wedding behind me and my boundaries set, I threw myself into SparkVibe like never before. The Nexlify deal was a rocket, and I was determined to ride it to the stars. I moved my team into a proper office, a sleek, open space in Vancouver with big windows and a coffee machine that didn't suck. Gwen, Lyle, and Fern were buzzing, their energy contagious as we mapped out the global campaign. It wasn't just about ads, it was about telling stories that stuck, making brands feel human. I was done living in anyone's shadow, especially my family's. I wanted the name Tammy, not their last name, not Darla's glow, to mean something undeniable. I started using my success to give back, to rewrite what family could mean. I launched a mentorship program through SparkVibe, targeting kids like I'd been. Dreamers who didn't fit the mold, who needed someone to say, "You're enough." We partnered with local schools, offering free workshops on digital marketing, coding, anything to spark their fire. I'd show up, tell my story, no sugarcoating the rejections, the late nights, the doubts, and watch their eyes light up. One kid, a shy 15-year-old named Quincy, built his first website after our workshop and sent me a link. It was clunky, but it was his, and I framed his thank you email next to my old client note. That was my legacy, not some inherited name tied to betrayal. I also took SparkVibe public, not on the stock market, but in the open. I dropped the pseudonym, owning Tammy as the face of the brand. The media ate it up, calling me a self-made disruptor, and for once, I didn't cringe at the spotlight. I did interviews, podcasts, even a TEDx talk, not to brag but to show what's possible when you bet on yourself. Every step was a reclaiming, a way to redefine who I was without their baggage. Mavis, Bert, Darla, they didn't get to claim this. I heard through a cousin that Darla's marriage was already fraying, Elton's family tightening their grip, but I didn't gloat. Their world wasn't mine anymore. The work wasn't perfect. There were sleepless nights, client tantrums, moments I doubted myself, but I had Gwen's designs, Lyle's data, Fern's viral magic, and a vision that felt bigger than me. I wasn't just building a company, I was building a life, one where I called the shots. The name Tammy was mine now, tied to impact, not dismissal. I looked out at the city from our office, the skyline sharp against the dusk, and knew I'd done what they never could. I'd made something real. The office was quiet tonight, just me and the hum of the city beyond the windows. I sat at my desk, a stack of mentorship applications in front of me, each one a kid with a dream bigger than their doubts. SparkVibe was thriving, the Nexlify campaign rolling out across continents, my team's laughter still echoing from our last meeting. I'd built this world, brick by brick, without Darla's approval or Mavis's pride. But as I looked at the skyline, its lights blurring into a soft glow, I realized something deeper. The real victory wasn't the deals or the headlines. It was the peace I'd found. The kind that comes when you stop needing anyone else to say you're enough. I thought back to the wedding, to Darla's betrayal, to the moment I grabbed that mic and rewrote my story. It felt like a lifetime ago, not months. I'd spent so long carrying their dismissal, letting it shape me. But now it was just a memory, not a chain. I didn't hate them, not Darla, not Mavis, not Bert. They were trapped in their own small world, chasing a version of success that'd never fill them up. I'd chosen differently. I'd chosen me. Every workshop I ran, every campaign we launched, every late-night brainstorm with Gwen, Lyle, and Fern, it was proof I didn't need their validation. My worth was in the work, in the lives I touched, in the truth I lived. I leaned back, my eyes catching the framed notes on my wall, Quincy's email, the skincare brand's thank you, tokens of a life I'd carved out. I didn't need to prove anything anymore, not to them, not to myself. That was the freedom I'd been chasing all along, the kind that lets you breathe deep and mean it. I smiled, closed my laptop, and headed home, the city's pulse matching my own. I was Tammy, and that was more than enough. Hey, you ever feel like you're fighting to be seen? Like your worth is tied to someone else's approval? That was me, running from my family's shadow, until I realized the only validation I needed was my own. I shared my story. The wedding, the betrayal, the moment I took my power back, because I know I'm not alone. What's your story? Have you ever had to walk away from people who couldn't see you, or fight for your own path? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear how you're carving out your space. If my journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to define success on their own terms. You don't need anyone's permission to shine, just your own. Keep building, keep dreaming, and know that you're enough, exactly as you are.